In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to handle flight delays and cancellations like a pro, so that you can have the best chance of getting to where you're going with minimal disruption. Now, this video is kind of an emergency publication since the FAA has announced that it will be forcing airlines to cut 10% of their flights from the 40 busiest airports in the US starting tomorrow. But these tips will help you out regardless of the reason your flight is delayed or canceled. Okay, here's what you need to know. Putting yourself in the best position to deal with a flight delay or cancellation starts before you even get to the airport. First, you'll want to download your airline's mobile app. Now, if you're a frequent flyer, your airline's mobile app is probably on your phone's home screen. But if you travel only once or twice a year, you may not want another app cluttering up your phone. But here's why this is important. Usually when a flight is delayed or canceled, your airline will allow you to rebook your flight on almost any logical routing where there are seats available. But every second that you wait to rebook, those seats are getting snapped up by other passengers. Waiting in line for even 20 minutes might be the difference between getting to your destination today or being stuck in a city overnight. If you have the mobile app, you can often rebook yourself on another flight without talking to somebody at the airport. And I'll talk more about that later. Second, take a look at the airline's website and see if they'll let you change your flight for free. When major events like weather, strikes, and airport closures are expected to happen, airlines will often give you additional flexibility with your ticket through a change waiver. Most major airlines will post this somewhere on their website, or they'll email or text impacted customers. Airline policies vary, but a waiver program will usually allow you to change your flight for free in advance to another flight if you're traveling through an impacted airport or region. And these waivers usually apply to non-refundable, non-changeable tickets like Basic Economy as well. If you know what to do, you can use a waiver to change your flight and put yourself in a position where you're more likely to get to your destination, and give yourself more options if your flight is delayed or canceled. If you can, rebook your flight onto an earlier flight in the day. When a flight gets delayed or canceled, it's not just that flight that's impacted. Every flight has a plane, a cabin crew, and pilots that are likely scheduled to work several flights on the same day. And when planes and crew aren't where the airline expects them to be, it can cause a cascade of cancellations and delays that are more likely to impact later flights. Further, pilots and cabin crew have a regulatory limit to the number of hours that they can work in a day. And if a flight would push them over that limit, they can't work it. This is called timing out. If a flight crew has been delayed and times out, the airline has to find a replacement crew. And often this results in a delayed flight or a cancellation if there's no crew available. Now, keyboard warriors in the comments, hold on. I know that airlines have different scheduling practices, but as a general rule, crew timeouts are more likely to happen later in the day. Finally, being on an earlier flight simply gives you more options. I would much rather be on a 7 a.m. flight and have a dozen other ways to get to my destination than be on the 9 p.m. flight where I'll be stuck overnight if something happens to my flight. When you look at flights online, you might see a note that a flight is operated by a carrier like SkyWest, Endeavor, Envoy, or Republic. These are regional airlines that operate smaller flights under a contract for major airlines like Delta, United, American, and Alaska. Now, unless you're an aviation geek or really paying attention, you're not going to notice much of a difference when you're flying on a regional airline. Often the planes are painted the same, the uniforms are similar, and the in-cabin announcements will mention the name of the major airline that they're flying for. Although, sometimes you'll catch pilots or flight attendants slipping up and saying the wrong mainline carrier name. But when you're flying during a major travel disruption, paying attention to this can make a big difference. Think about it this way. If you were running an airline and you had to thin out your flight schedule because of weather or some other event, would you rather cancel a 50-seat regional jet or cancel a mainline flight on an A320 or 737, both of which carry about 200 passengers? The bottom line is, if you're currently booked on a flight operated by a regional airline and have the ability to change your flight to one that's actually operated by a major carrier, you should probably do that. So you've got your airline's app, and maybe you changed your plans to take an earlier flight. I probably don't need to belabor the point that you should usually arrive at your airport a little bit earlier if there's a major travel disruption, but there are a few things that you can do at the airport to set yourself up for success if your flight is delayed or canceled. Now, this might seem unintuitive, but checking your bags can make you more flexible if you need to get rerouted at the last minute. By checking a bag, you literally make everything that you do at the airport easier. It's less hassle to get through security, you can more easily run to catch another flight, and you won't need to wait for your bag to be delivered gateside if you're coming in on a smaller regional flight. If you've got a credit card that lets you check a bag for free, this is a good time to use that benefit. But even if you don't, gate agents are usually happy to check your bags to your final destination for free because it speeds up the boarding and deplaning process. The best time to ask about this is when you get to the gate before your flight starts boarding. Now, you might be worried about if your bag is going to get to your destination, but you really shouldn't be. Airlines are relatively good at moving bags around, and when flights get delayed or canceled and you get rebooked, your bag will sometimes get to your destination before you do. Plus, if you booked with a credit card offering baggage delay insurance, your credit card's insurance will frequently cover the incidental expenses that you might have, like toiletries and other essentials that you need to buy until your bag arrives. And if you're really worried, packing just one change of clothes in your carry-on can give you some peace of mind without forcing you to run through a large airport with a heavy suitcase while catching a connecting flight. Okay, so you're at the airport waiting for your flight, and the gate agent announces that your flight is delayed or canceled. Here's what you should do. Immediately get out your phone and open your airline's mobile app. If your flight's been delayed or canceled, this is generally the fastest way to get rebooked. You'll usually be able to see alternative flights, and you can select one and get rebooked, usually within a few seconds. If you've been automatically rebooked, you should be able to see your updated flight information, and you can often see other flight rebooking options if they're available. If what you see in the app works for you, you're generally set. But if you can't rebook through the app or don't see a flight option that works for you, there are a few places that you can get help. Most people will line up at the gate that their canceled flight was going to depart from to get rebooked. But this isn't your only, or even your best option. If you can be one of the first few people in line, the gate agent can probably get you rebooked quickly, but if the other 100 people on your flight got there first, you might want to consider your other options. Many airlines have an irregular operations rebooking phone line. Sometimes gate agents will hand out cards with a phone number, other times you might see banks of phones stationed throughout major hub airports, but however you contact the rebooking line, it's often a better option than calling your airline's reservation phone number. Generally, the airlines will prioritize calls coming into their rebooking lines, and you'll get rebooked faster than calling the regular number. If there are a lot of people in line to get rebooked by an agent at your gate, look for a customer service center instead. Most airlines staff on-site customer service centers at their hub airports with agents who can help you with rebooking. Be on the lookout for these as you go through the airport and know where these are before your flight's canceled. These customer service counters can rebook you as easily as a gate agent can, and you might find that the wait for these customer service centers is faster than you would wait at your gate. Finally, if you have access to your airline's lounge, this can be a great place to go to get rebooked. Airline lounges usually staff someone dedicated to working on ticketing and rebooking, and they'll often send additional staff to help out during situations when lots of flights are getting canceled or delayed. But not all airport lounges are going to have somebody to help you with rebooking. Airport lounges like the Amex Centurion Lounge, the Capital One Lounge, or lounges that you can access with a lounge membership program like Priority Pass aren't run by the airlines, so they're not going to have anybody to rebook you. Finally, remember that you can use these options in tandem. There's nothing preventing you from checking your app or calling a rebooking phone number while standing in line and waiting for someone at the airport to help you. Maybe you followed all of the tips in this video, but you ended up on the last flight of the night that just canceled and you're going to have to get rebooked for tomorrow. Now you might be wondering if the airline will put you up in a hotel room. Well, yes, they do this sometimes, and your best bet for getting a hotel accommodation is to ask at the gate of the flight that just canceled. But if the cancellation was for anything that the airline can claim wasn't their fault, like weather or air traffic control, you're probably on your own to find a hotel room. When it's 1 a.m., my flight was canceled, and I just want to find a bed, I'm not picky. Personally, I just open up some site like Hotels.com and book a nearby hotel, and then take an Uber or Lyft there. At that point, I'm optimizing on how I can get into a bed in the least amount of time. But a lot of time, the credit card that I use to book my flight will end up picking up the tab for an overnight hotel room. And that's because I always use a card with trip delay protection to book my flight. On the cards that I have, this benefit covers my necessary overnight expenses when my flight is canceled because of equipment failure, weather, organized strikes, and hijacking. But hopefully I never have to make a claim on that last one. Now you're probably watching this video well after you booked your airline ticket, so this might be a tip that you can use for your next trip. But if you are delayed overnight and end up paying for a hotel, keep your receipts and call your credit card issuer to see if you have a benefit like this. Or subscribe to the channel and learn about stuff like this so that you can have this benefit next time you travel. There you go. Those are my top tips for how to be prepared for and how to handle flight delays and cancellations. Now I wrote, edited, filmed, and released this video in a few hours because about 12 hours after I post this, I'm heading off to Chicago. And like I mentioned at the top of the video, tomorrow is likely to be a very chaotic travel day since the FAA is making airlines cancel 10% of their flights. If my flight gets delayed, I'll hop on my phone and respond to your comments and questions. So if you've got a question about what to do when your flight gets delayed or canceled, leave it in the comments and I might answer it from an airport tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a great day, and if you're delayed in Chicago tomorrow, come say hi.